A day of death and mourning for yesterday, as we had three major issues to release. First, the death of Soundgarden and Audioslave rocker Chris Cornell. Then Fox News head Roger Ailes, or former Fox News head Roger Ailes, and one death and up to 22 people hurt in a odd accident in Times Square happening yesterday. Those stories and some lighter ones that we discussed in the conversation for yesterday, that happened to be the 18th of May, so that makes this morning the 19th of May, 2017. Welcome to the Daily Recap Podcast for ThisIsAConversation.com, the home for some of the best conversations around the web with some of the best people to talk to about current events, topical things, and sometimes just really silly things that pop up. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne, your curator at This Is the Conversation, hoping that you join us for all the great conversations we have on social media and the website, ThisIsAConversation.com. To follow us on social media and get in real time as these things drop, we're on Twitter at th_conversation. Also, Facebook, search for This Is the Conversation, and the main website, of course, is ThisIsAConversation.com. Stop by our website for lots of great fun stuff, including information on our sponsors to help us keep this thing going. This week's main sponsor we're showcasing is Cloud9 Living. Now, Cloud9 Living can help you live up the life that you have always wanted to do. They have great excursions, great packages, great vacations, and just really fun stuff that you didn't think you'd ever get a chance to do. They are the home for your bucket list right there. And if you want to get a discount so you can get that dream ticked off at 10% off, you can stop by our website, click on the website, click on the link for Cloud9 Living, and of course you'll get 10% off gift certificates for Cloud9 Living. So you can buy that certificate and give it to someone else so they can live off their dream and do their crazy thing without, getting in your way. That's at ThisIsAConversation.com/sponsors and click on Cloud9 Living. Now, let's go over what was a kind of a short day in conversations online because of some just crazy things going on, but big things happening, a lot of developments in the stories. The first story for the morning was Soundgarden and Audioslave rocker Chris Cornell found dead at the age of 52 after playing a show in Detroit. Now, more and more information came out of this throughout the day, but it turned out that Chris Cornell died of a suicide, found hanging gruesomely enough after the show early in the morning. A lot of things went to Chris Cornell. In fact, the Sirius XM channel dedicated its volume channel to essentially all day Chris Cornell, and they talked up all these things before they knew the full details and full gravity of the measure. Of course, he's 52 years old. We said yesterday he's basically famous now for scoring films and writing writing music for movies, but he still tours with his band, still does his musical thing as he can, and a lot of the issues from last night showed a contradictory views of the night before's concert, where he seemed out of sorts, he seemed agitated, things just weren't right. Maybe a sign that maybe something was up and he might have needed a little extra attention that night. But we do know that Chris Cornell found dead yesterday. The coroners has officially named it a suicide, dead at the age of 52. Our second story was on Zomato, the restaurant commerce site, where a hacker stole 17 million users' data. And now the rest of the story on that one is this company is working with the hacker, who is a ethical hacker, one of those guys, to not sell the information, effectively delete the information, but find ways to shore up Zomato's technology. It's one of those weird, must be now stories where someone didn't reach in and get into this one site, a popular site. They did it because they were fans of the site, found a hole, pulled out the hole and exploited it, and then went back to the company and said, hey, here's your hole. Let's work on that. The big news is if you had your information stolen from Zomato, it's probably not going to be used for nefarious needs because, like you said, this guy that actually did the work, an ethical hacker who's going to help Zomato shore up their security on. Now, former Fox News head Roger Ailes also passed away late in the evening on Wednesday. He died at the age of 77. A lot of tributes going out to Roger Ailes on the plus and the minus side. Of course, he created Fox News after being a longtime TV-type producer and media producer, and created a news channel on a bent that did exist at the time. It focused on conservative views that weren't exactly being covered in the news. So it was a way to, quote unquote, mask the news in a conservative bent. So that's how you got the birth of people like Bill O'Reilly and, of course, Sean Hannity, things like that. A lot of great tributes going out to him from folks like O'Reilly and Hannity and Shepard Smith. A lot of things not so great said because of the turnaround that we've had lately based on essentially him being kind of the dirty old man in the room for a long time and him essentially asking for sexual favors from a lot of past colleagues, past former employees in the wake of things going on, including the big lawsuit with Gretchen Carlson, where they lost a bunch of money, and then finding out that many other of the big female stars at Fox News had dealt with serious allegations, but of course kept quiet because of their statute at the network and their statute in the media. Colin McGregor calling out Floyd Mayweather in a sense. Colin McGregor says they have a fight deal signed. So Colin McGregor, the MMA fighter, has a deal signed with Floyd Mayweather, the boxer, to get it on in some way, more likely a boxing match. However, Mayweather's camp say that things are quote-unquote on hold, not quite there. So what that means, whether it's a contract or just waiting for a date or whether the details aren't quite worked out, we shall hopefully soon see. Conor McGregor going to social media to put out plenty of tweets with plenty of pictures of his belts and his son, saying he's ready to take some boxing belts on to go along with the MMA belts he's earned over the years. We'll see if this big match happens. Travis Scott performed Goosebumps 14 times, breaking a record for the most times performing a song in one show. If you're a fan of Travis Scott and Goosebumps, you got to hear a lot of it at a show a couple days ago because he played it over and over and over again. From what I can tell from the social media reaction, it was awesome sauce times 12. He played it over and over and over again, breaking the record that was formerly held by Jay-Z and Kanye West, where they performed their single Brothers in Paris, where they don't use the word brothers, in Paris 12 times. Because why not? They're in Paris. They might as well do it 12 times. That was a previous record. Before that, I'm not sure what it was, but Guinness came out and said, yep, he's got it. So Travis Scott, your new record for performing the most performance of a single song in one show, and that is 14 with Goosebumps, giving people out there in the audience goosebumps to hear it over and over and over again. Check it out. They have clips of it on YouTube so you can see how that thing went. 13 pedestrians injured and one dead in a car crash in Times Square. Now, this number bumped up to around 22 pedestrians that were injured. A man who was at frequent drunk driving charges drove out of control into a bunch of people in Times Square, killing one person and injuring about 22 others in the process. Plenty of details out there online on what's going on, including some very great tributes to the young girl who died in that crash. But essentially sightseeing, just walking around in what should be one of the safest places on earth based on security, and just some random dumb guy doing something stupid causing this thing. This is the third major death issue we had for the day, and it was live going on as it happened throughout the Thursday. Now, we had a lot of back and forth from Trump, and nothing really new to report, although we talked a lot about the new special prosecutor with Robert Mueller and all that stuff the day before. But we did get one little Trump story in that just kind of snuck in on us. Toby Keith is going to Saudi Arabia with Donald Trump, more or less. Donald Trump's going to Saudi Arabia as a part of his foreign trip coming up starting on the weekend. Toby Keith is going to be in Saudi Arabia there as well. So after Trump gives a speech to, I'm assuming just a bunch of men only in Saudi Arabia, Toby Keith is going to perform a concert for men only in Saudi Arabia. So a lot of Twitter talk about Toby Keith, the man who's talked about, the great Red, White, and Blue and all this. We're going to punch Muslims in the face and stuff like that. We'll see how well he is received in Saudi Arabia and how well Trump is received in the process as well. Speaking of records, the record-setting rain in Los Angeles is holding off the building of the stadium for the new football stadium for the Chargers and Rams. Now, this is an issue that's going to push it back to 2020. Yes, we're not going to have a football stadium for these two teams that was supposed to open up in 2018, essentially coming up later this year. It's going to be pushed back about 2 years because so much rain is keeping all the construction work from being done, which sort of happens. Although these two teams are on the hot seat for getting games going in Los Angeles, the Chargers moving to Los Angeles away from their current home. The Rams already in Los Angeles playing in the Coliseum and waiting for something more modern to play in. And the first tweet we had for this morning was Swedish prosecutors dropping their rape investigation on Julian Assange. So the founder of WikiLeaks and the apparently our first international supervillain, Julian Assange, who's been living in an embassy for fear of being arrested on these charges, now has these charges dropped. However, he still can't quite leave that embassy yet because he still has a warrant out for his arrest for failure to appear at a hearing on this charge back in 2012. So he can still be picked up for missing a hearing, even though the charges themselves have been dropped. They're two separate matters. Not appearing and not actually facing the facts are two separate things. So he's still living in the embassy until they can figure that part out. But that warrant is still live. I'm sure it's just a legal, technical thing, but maybe he'll step out, face the warrant, pay a fine, and move on from life. But considering he won't be up for sexual rape charges, probably better suited to just step out now and deal with that one little failure to appear than to hide from law at this point on. And those are the conversations that we had all day Thursday for the 18th of May. Today, the 19th, and more great conversations we're expecting to have, including in a little bit, we will record for the weekend. Record this on Friday for the weekend, but we'll do the top 10 and then some of the best stories, the most popular stories in conversations we had on the past 7 days, since last Friday to last Friday, or this Friday. So we're going to record that in a little bit, so you'll hear that coming up on your Saturday edition of the podcast for the weekly wrap-up podcast. Hopefully you join us for that, and join us again on Monday where we wrap up the full weekend. We'll get Friday, Saturday, and Sunday all in one big, massive file, because it'll probably be a little long. We do take a little time off on the weekend, but when big things pop up, we jump in there and talk about it, and we get as many as we can. And it turns to a longer version on Monday because we got 3 days wrapped in together. Thank you so much for joining us for all our conversations. Make sure you get in on the real-time conversation by following us on Twitter, th_conversation, Facebook, This is a Conversation, and, of course, thisistheconversation.com. Stop by the website and see all the great sponsors. Take care of them so they can take care of us, keeping these conversations going. Go to thisistheconversation.com/sponsors. This week's major sponsor we are spotlighting is Cloud9 Living, for your way to get your bucket list taken care of. They can do it, and they can do it at a great price, too, oddly enough. Sometimes these things are money issues. They've got great deals for you right now. For more information on my other projects, check out jclevelandpayne.net. Thank you for being a part of all our conversations. We'll join you, and you'll join us, for more podcast hijinks coming up from This is the Conversation.